there are currently 3,000 Tulkus, uncounting all the Khenpos and Lopans. If adding all Buddhist teachers from Buddhist countries like Thailand, Myanmar, China, there's a possibility of tens of thousands of teachers. And all of us follow the same teachings of the Buddha. 6 perfections, enlightenment, refuge. These are common taught subjects by respected teachers. However, none of these will be in the topic today. Today will be about how to apply the teachings of the Buddha in your daily life without having to sacrifice pretty much anything in return. An introduction to Buddhism. Hi, my name is Dezhung Tulku. I'm a graduate from the Institute of Higher Vajrayana Studies. I spent 14 years studying at Sakya College and at the Institute of Higher Vajrayana Studies. After all this time, I've learned I've only taken the first step of 1,000 miles to understand the nature of enlightenment. The principal of the Institute requested me to give a talk about Buddhism, and I had to do it in 15 minutes. And I was like, the scriptures from India that Buddha taught has over 300,000 pages. That's uncounting all the other scholars. So I have to try to fit in over 600,000 pages worth of teachings into 15 minutes. And so I was like, okay. And so I have chosen, what does Buddhism mean for the 21st century? How Buddhism is a library full of happiness techniques and the most common practice as well. Staying in a retreat in a cave or going to a monastery to do a puja. I think lots of people think that's what's required for you to do as a Buddhist. And those are important. But I think we have to figure out why we're doing it. What is the reason for doing it? And that is happiness. Happiness is a drive for every human being in every universe. And happiness can be considered into 2 categories. The self-happiness and the happiness of compassion. The self-happiness comes from an action doing only for yourself and for your own sake alone. It is the feeling that comes after that. That is the feeling of self-happiness. Buying yourself a Rolex watch or buying yourself a sports car. The happiness of compassion, if you see someone slip and fall down, most cases, people will ignore that person. Some people might laugh. But if you go and you have that person get up and he thanks you, the feeling that comes after that, that is the feeling of happiness. I sometimes wonder if all people are actually seeking the happiness of compassion, but through miscommunication, misunderstanding, they end up seeking self-happiness unsaid. If you lived on Mars alone, would it really matter if you owned a Rolls wagon or a simple Nissan car? My opinion, I would prefer the most comfortable car over the expensive car. Now imagine, if you are thirsty in drinking salt water, self-happiness, to my understanding, can also be like that. In order to quench your thirst, you end up drinking salt water. It might help you for a second, but later it brings more suffering. If you buy one company, later you'll want to buy 100 companies, then 10,000 companies. At the end, you will die trying to quench that thirst and never succeeding. Now imagine, if you went to the theaters and you spotted a child looking at a poster of the movie showing, you go up to the kid and you ask, "Hey kid, are you excited to watch the movie?" And the kid says, "I wish I could, but I can't afford it." Then you ask, "What are your parents?" Then she says, "I'm an orphan." Then you get this urge where you want to help this person cease their suffering and find some happiness. So you go and you buy extra ticket for the kid. The look on her face, that is your first reward. And enjoying a good movie, sharing popcorn, that is your second reward. And after, when the movie ends, the kid comes up to you and gives you a hug, and she says, "Thank you. This is the best gift and the only gift I've ever received in my life." The feeling that comes after that, that is the feeling of happiness or compassion. And I guarantee that any self-happiness will not even come close to that. And that is the formula. You can continue doing almost anything. A massage therapist, a hairstylist, a businessman, doctors of course, as long as you change the attitude of thinking only for myself, instead you think, I will do this for myself and others. That is all. And now, shamatha. The foundation for every practice there is for Buddhism all starts from shamatha. And shamatha is understanding the nature of your mind. Some people assume that in order to do shamatha, you must become a Buddhist practitioner, must believe in Buddhist philosophy. That is not true. Lord Buddha's wish was for all beings to have happiness, despite what you believe in. He didn't care. And so shamatha now, I believe, can be considered into 5 different categories. Unless your mind is a higher state, the normal thoughts we have in our heads or minds can be considered into 5 senses. That is sight, hearing, smell, taste, feeling, or touch. Out of 24 hours, unless you're working on something, your mind is usually wandering on something that is not beneficial at all for you. You spend 60% of your time thinking about the past and 30% of your time thinking about futures that do not make any sense, that do not really help your current situation. It is like being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a boat. Instead of you sailing the boat and going where you go, you are allowing the waves to take you where you want to go. You might get lucky and you might find Treasure Island, but I think the odds are against that. We all know that if we don't exercise our body and eat lots of junk food, we become fat, unhealthy, or always are tired, and also get many diseases too. The mind is the same. If you don't train your mind, there's a high chance of you getting Alzheimer's when you are in your 60s. It also can bring many different other mental problems as well as being unhappy too. If you have spent all your life thinking about the same thoughts without really changing anything, there's a very high chance that you'll also be unhappy. And now, the actual practice. Shamatha, as I said before, can be considered into 5 different categories. And for me, usually, I can do it in 3 different categories. So the first one is sight. So in my head, when I'm meditating, at first you begin by counting your breaths. So as I'm breathing in, I can usually either visualize a white light going inside, or if you watched Avatar, The Last Airbender, it's a cartoon. The airflows they make in the cartoon is something I can also visualize going in. So as I see that, I breathe in, it's going out, it's going in, coming in my body. When I breathe out, it goes out my body. That's one. Another one is sound. This is quite common among Tibetans, I believe, is where when you're breathing in, you think in your mind, I'm breathing in. You will hear the words repeating that. And when the air comes out, you're thinking the air comes out. Then you would count 1. And the third one, which is actually my favorite, is you feel the air. So when you're breathing in, you can feel the air going in your nostrils, down your throat, throughout your body. And as you breathe out, you repeat the same pattern. So you do that again and again. That is something that you can also try doing too. But the most important, I believe lots of people actually try doing shamatha, but they forget one of the fundamental aspects, that is relaxation. If you're not relaxed, if you're stressed, you cannot meditate. It does not work. Which is why for me, when I'm usually stressed, before I start meditating, I have to take a couple of minutes just to release the stress. So if you're an experienced practitioner, of course, you can do all the 7 positions required to do shamatha. But for beginners, for the sake of beginners like me, I usually prefer doing it on my couch. So as I'm sitting on my couch, I spend some time while closing my eyes, and I imagine all the stress going out of my body, like throughout my skin, as in like steam coming out. And I go all the way until I'm almost ready to fall asleep. That's how relaxed I need to be. And once I'm doing that, then I can breathe in, stay, then it goes out. Then it becomes really much easier to do. Especially during this pandemic, I really believe shamatha is most important. So many people are suffering, there's so much suffering going around, and due to most people having to stay inside, it is very difficult nowadays to pass time. And there are many different studies you can do, or many books you can read, but it is really hard to do, hard to make yourself do. And shamatha is the perfect tool for you to use to reach, of course enlightenment, but reading books as well. I also think shamatha is like having the best bow and arrow on the planet. But if you aim your arrow at your foot instead of the bullseye, you will more likely hit your foot instead of the bullseye. And that's the thing. Using the practice of happiness, thinking for myself and others, and also using shamatha, I truly believe that you can almost overcome anything and accomplish all your goals. How could you not? And at the end, if you watch Star Wars, the trilogy, at the beginning, there is the first movie, The Phantom Menace. Anakin Skywalker quotes his mom saying, "Mom, you said the biggest problem in the universe is that people are not hugging each other." And also, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, in Hobbit, when Gandalf and Lady Galadriel are talking, Gandalf says, "Saruman believes only great power can keep evil at bay, but that is not what I found. It is the little things that keep evil at bay. It is the compassion and the love we share each other every day that really counts." And at the end, I would like to send my wishes and prayers to all the frontline workers during this pandemic, the doctors and nurses, the drivers, communication workers, truck drivers, everybody. Thank you. Without you all, I really believe that people who would have died would have been beyond count. I also want to send my condolences and prayers for all the people who have died and the families of those people. Your suffering is truly great, and you are in my prayers. I would also like to request the people who watch this and join me in wishing and praying, if you're a believer, for this pandemic to end soon and for peace to come back. Black lives and all lives matter. Thank you.